Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is okay this morning. Yeah, it's 4:42 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I was up. If I'm being honest with you, I was blazing some granddaddy perp. Doing what real men do in the morning, and that's study Swedish politics. Why was I studying Swedish politics, you ask? Well, one of my subscribers, hopefully she's a patron, requested that I take a look at the Swedish elections because they're coming up in September, first part of September, and she wanted my take on it. As I was looking over it this morning, I couldn't sleep. I was fascinated by this, and this was interesting enough where I wanted to do this. I had no intention of doing a show this morning, but screw it. I think I have the thread for this, so I want to go for it. I'm going to try to do this in 20 minutes. Sometimes when I'm slightly buzzing, I have a tendency to go into certain tangents, so I'm going to try to corral that thought. There's a little thing at the top for Streamlabs. The channel has been completely demonetized, so if you would like to give anything for the show to support the content, you can do so with a link in the description box. It would allow you to go through PayPal. Also, if you are a patron, if you enjoy, I said that weirdly in an odd way, if you enjoy this content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And I do encourage, if you like and you find yourself coming back constantly, please consider, even if it's just $1, to support the patron or PayPal. So I want to try to do this in 20 minutes, at least, or under 20 minutes. I'm going to do my best. So, born and raised in America, Richmond, Virginia, and being born and raised in this country in this particular time period, I have a certain disposition of the world. Meaning, I look at the world in a particular way that's commiserate with where I'm from and the time period to which I exist. Now, I say that to say, I'm not living in a time period where people just looked at their political leaders and believed what they said. I am in a time of cynicism. And in this time of cynicism, I look at what these guys say, and the facade that the media tries to project of the political leaders is not the reality of what these guys do. And in this time of internet and everything else, you get a better chance of seeing what they do in relation to what they say. I am one of those people that tries to call out what they do. The parties are fundamentally the same. You fundamentally have one party with two wings, and they pretend as if these things are different. In the Soviet Union, you had a Communist Party. They outlawed all other parties. But within the Communist Party, you would imagine you had various strands of communism. Some people may be more hawkish, some people less so. So you may have these two various distinct branches of the Communist Party that wanted to go in particular ways. That was, yes, under the communist umbrella, but at the same token, variances on themselves. Both of those things are still communism. I make the point to say that that would be almost indistinguishable from what you have now. Same thing. Capitalist party with two strands, one more rapacious, a little bit more rapacious than the other, but fundamentally see the world in the exact same way. We don't see it that way. We act as if they have one party, we have two parties. Oh, look at democracy. Both of these parties are bought. Both of these parties serve at the interests of the same trough. One is just, I don't want to go that far, even though they go pretty far on their own. The Democratic strategy has been, we are less shittier than them. Whatever they are from the standpoint of shittiness, subtract one, and that's where we are. The Republican Party has taken a different tact, using religion using, of course, representing the wealth, but also taking a tack that seems to be represented in all right-wing parties all throughout the world. Those goddamn immigrants. Those goddamn immigrants. Now, there's a section of the electorate that's going to be racist. Let's put them to the side for the moment, because they're swamp dwellers in all parties that are racist, and they're just going to be there, and they're going to be waiting to grab anything that goes by. But there is a section of the electorate that will be susceptible to that, depending upon the level of chaos and the level of distress that is in your society. Meaning, the more difficult your society has become, the more susceptible that group will be to that demagogue. Those people in America, it takes the particular tone of those people are coming over this border and they're taking your jobs. Those good, hard-working jobs, picking oranges, back-breaking work in the fields all day, picking lemons and oranges and apples and selling them and carrying them 20 miles. They're taking those good American jobs, and you can get 25 cents an orange. Those bastards. They do this. Now, I would make the point that Donald Trump didn't win because of this. Because we don't have an immigration problem in America. For all of the protestations, the screaming about the walls and everything else, this is somewhat of a trumped up issue. It's not necessarily a real thing. And so it's not something in America that necessarily draws blood. The right or the left does play into some of the stuff, but this is not a real issue per se. So when I look at this, I say, this is trumped up. I am primed just by virtue of where I am and where I come from to say, this is nonsense. They are playing this up. The issues that affect the American public are not necessarily coming from over the border or swimming from across these shores. They are homegrown. It is the capitalist that pays the immigrant a dirt cheap wage and drag down wages. It is the capitalist that sets the price. It is the capitalist that ships the job overseas. All of these things are paramount to the capitalists themselves. And yet, the right wing plays the bottom against each other, saying those immigrants are taking your good, hard-earned, low-paying jobs. It's nonsense. This is the richest country on the planet. This country can easily take on many immigrants. It doesn't do so, per se, or at the very least, it doesn't do so without, let's say, a bunch of difficulty. And under Trump, it has taken in that much less. It's not real. That said, I can't use that lens to look at the rest of the world, because that lens doesn't necessarily apply to the rest of the world. This is an hard argument for me to make because I'm on the left, but I'm going to make it anyway because I think it's right. The United States, pretend for the moment there's no such thing as right and wrong. In fact, for the duration of this conversation, pretend for the moment right and wrong doesn't exist, and that the thing that exists ultimately is cause and effect. Because, and yeah, I am building up for an argument here, but right and wrong are some degree emergent, meaning morality is emergent. And it would always be subordinate to cause and effect. Meaning, if my wife and kids, I don't have any kids, but if my wife and kids were going to go hungry, if I did not sell this person a lemon, will I sell the person a lemon? Yes. More likely than not, I am going to take the hit. How I feel about it is going to be less important than making sure my wife and kid eat. So yeah, that person is probably going to get the lemon. Now you ask the question, how many people, if you put 100 people in this position, how many of these people will sell that guy the lemon? And if you get 70 or 80% willing to sell him the lemon, then at that point, it's not really the person, is it? It's the situation that the person is in. I'm making a point about cause and effect versus right and wrong. We on the left get into this idea of right and wrong as opposed to cause and effect. That's the first point. I just want to make that point clear. The United States and and its vassal state countries smashed the Middle East to bits. In smashing the Middle East to bits, we essentially expose all sorts of terrors all throughout the Middle East. Fires, one country after the next. Iraq, Libya, Somalia, all those, Syria, paying terrorists, literally paying terrorists, openly known paying terrorists to essentially undermine and change a government because we don't necessarily like that guy being in charge of that particular government. And we want complete domination in that region. Not to mention undermining Iran in that region. There are a host of countries that we were bombing. Now, what do you think happens when we drop bombs? When we're killing and maiming, when there are 1 million people that die in Iraq, when the soldiers in Iraq, meaning we disperse the armies, and those armies, those well-trained military men go ravaging into other countries, and you get ISIS. And then we assist ISIS. Our allies, Israel, assists ISIS, especially in the Golan Heights, because it created a buffer zone. When we pay terrorists in those regions to try to undermine the government because we don't want to side in that government. When we destroy Libya and you have gangs roving about the countryside selling black slaves. What do you think happens in those countries when those things happen? You have people flee those countries because a sane individual doesn't like to be in a war zone. They don't like to have bombs dropped on them. So they grab their kids, they grab whatever else they have, and they leave. They get on boats. They flee. They try to find other places that they can live with their families. That's not insane. That makes all the sense in the world. They ended up on the shores of Europe. For our particular talk, we were talking about Sweden. But they ended up on the shores of Europe, completely destabilizing the politics of Europe. Now, in the standpoint of Sweden, and the images on that were weird. There were other images and those images in the show, but whatever. From the standpoint of Sweden, how can I say this? Many of these countries, especially Europe, took to this from a humanitarian standpoint. And I would have taken the same disposition. Meaning, oh my God, all of these people are in need and we need to do something about these people in need. That they're on boats, they're on ships. They're coming over here. They don't have a penny to their name. They need our help. And we in Europe are going to offer our assistance and we're going to open our doors and we're going to help them out. Now, the wild part about this is America was the main country that did the bombing, did the destroying, essentially smashed those countries to bits, and yet was a country that took the least of these people that were swimming or on these boats coming to these shores. Of all of the countries, per capita, meaning for their size, Sweden only has 6.7 million people. Sweden accepted more than any other country per its size. Germany accepted a ton, yes. But Sweden, again, only has 6.7 million people in the country. And it accepted 244,128 migrants. That is a profound number of migrants. Libya, Syria, Somalia, all of these countries were represented in what Sweden did, meaning taking them in. It's not wrong that Sweden took them in, but there are consequences for doing that. Now, I look at this from the left, and again, my original disposition is immigration stuff is usually nonsense because much of the stuff have to do with what's taking place within the country itself. But the reality of it is, they've taken in a large share of people. True or false? A large number of the people who are coming over from a different culture. That is true, as a flat fact. Many of those people are going to be completely ecstatic that they're being accepted in, and they just want somewhere to live and somewhere to get away from the bombs falling. That is also true. There will be a disposition of those people, or a section of those people that maintain the culture that they're left with. Meaning that even though they're happy to come to your country, and even though they're going to abide by your laws and everything else, they're still maintaining who they are. Them wanting a fresh start and with them wanting a better life doesn't necessarily mean they're willing to shed everything that they are to get that better life. The other part to that is you will also have a section of those people who are pricks, who may be violent. Do you think that war zones is always going to breed the most nicest people on the planet, or do you think war zones may breed people who may do certain things and get certain, let's say, traits that they need to survive in a war zone that they may bring with them into Sweden? Yes. It would be nonsense to believe otherwise. This is not condemning the entirety. This is not necessarily saying that the whole are problematic. This is acknowledging that in any section of people, there will be a subset that will be fucking it up for the rest. Yes, the large share and the majority of the people who are coming over are looking for a better life. But let's be honest and let's acknowledge that there will be a share of those people that are not necessarily looking to change and not necessarily looking for the best interests of the Swedes. The left-wing government took in a large number of people. It is absolutely in humanitarian interest, and I can totally understand it, to say we want to accept people into the country to help. It is not in the best interest of the country, nor the best interest of the left, to accept more than the capacity of the country can bear. That is an important point to understand. If the number of people that you're accepting is adversely affecting the population of that country, then the right-wing argument starts to gain ground. If the right-wing argument starts to make sense from the standpoint of there is something that is adversely affecting the country that is directly related to what the left wing has been doing from the standpoint of immigration, then the left wing will suffer if it does not pay attention to those arguments. The argument is absolutely true that many of the times the problems that are faced with, that the right wing is making hay about, is purely internal to the country itself. Meaning you can undermine that argument by dealing with the issues and the factors in the country. That you can make this case that says if you release the economic stress and the arguments going about the immigration stuff start to die down. However, if you've accepted 244,000 people into the country and your country is not capable of enduring or bearing that number of people, and there are problems that start to become associated with that, then you are going to be attributed or associated with those problems, and your party will suffer. And that is precisely what is taking place. This is not me saying that they shouldn't have accepted people into the country. Yes, it is the greatest thing in the world that they did. By the same token, let's be honest, and let's say that there will be a culture shock and there will be an integration period that will be difficult in accepting those people into the country. And if your country is not capable of enduring the number of people that you've accepted into the country, then you will suffer politically. Let me make this point, because I don't want people saying we're pulling Jamal's left-wing card over this. A few things have taken place. Rapes have went up 14%. I didn't believe this myself, but the police chief here on the news or on one of these precincts is making the point to saying there's so many rapes that we can't keep up with the number of rapes regarding investigations into the number of rape cases. That is mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. This is not just a right-wing thing, by the way. You have communists and people who look like street gangs in the United States roving the streets to protect the citizens in various districts in Sweden because of, you could say, a crime wave brought about by the integration or the immigration of some people into the country itself. Again, this is not castigating the whole. This is making a point about what's taking place, however. There's more. There are 50 areas of immigrant populations that are problem zones, 23 of which are considered no-go zones, meaning areas that are little to no Swedes living in, and that are for the most part fundamentally immigrant populations, where those immigrant populations have almost essentially taken those areas. You have areas of gun shootings increasing. The people's like, how the hell did you have gun shooters increasing? Well, you have certain people fleeing from war zones, bringing with them certain things from those war zones. You have situation of drugs increasing. You have crimes, threats. You have all sorts of things that are increasing. Now, taking away this idea of right and wrong for the moment and going with the idea of cause and effect, you bring in hundreds of thousands of people into your country. Those people are different than you from the standpoint of cultural. And this is not an acknowledgement of right or wrong. I'm just saying difference. I'm acknowledging difference, not right or wrong. And in making that point of difference, you're trying to integrate them into your society, and you don't have the capacity to integrate that number that fast. What do you think happens? You have a large number of people that have no capacity to integrate fast enough. And you have these people living in what has ended up being ghettos. They're living off the system, and they don't necessarily have, you can say, the skill set to propagate or persist in your society. You've created a situation of people who are isolated. I guess my point is, a ghetto in one country is like a ghetto in any country. If they don't have the capacity to get jobs, if they don't have the capacity to essentially function like a normal member of your society, then you've created a problem for yourself. Now, you've done a good thing from a humanitarian standpoint, but from the same standpoint, that has consequences when you can't accommodate the thing that you just did. Germany starts a war. In Germany starting that war, Germany is fighting that war on two fronts. Germany may be able to take out one, but Germany cannot accommodate what Germany just did in creating a war on two fronts. I'm making a point that in this very specific case, however, this is a humanitarian cause. And they did open society. We want to help. Arms stretched to the world. We're open. But just because you're open doesn't necessarily mean you can accommodate everything that comes in. And this is not necessarily a thing of right or wrong. I'm making a point here that this has less to do with right or wrong and more to do with cause and effect. If you bring a large number of people into a country with a different culture, yes or no, will you get a reaction from the people in the country? Yes, of course. If you have a situation where rapes are increasing, crime is increasing, gun violence is increasing, no-go areas are increasing, what do you think the people in your society are going to do? Do you think those people will react? Yes. And if you are a left-wing party and your mantra in this is, well, the right-wing party is making hay of this, we just need to speed up integration, you have areas in your country that people are calling no-go zones. This is not me saying it. This is RT saying it. And RT is not, don't necessarily have a dog in his hunt. You have communists and right-wingers marching on the streets. I guess my point to this is the left wing, and not taking heed to this, is allowing the right wing to gain magnificent sway in this. Do you know that a neo-Nazi group, an offshoot of a Nazi group, is now running in second place, the Swedish Democrats, in Swedish elections? The Social Democrats are still the top dog, but only by a little bit. And it's possible that they could even lose. This is a Eurosceptic group, but I'm trying to make this very clear point, that the left has this thing about itself with immigration. And it's one thing to look at a situation to just honestly acknowledge, yes, this is a problem. Yes, we want to be an open society. But yeah, there are limits to what we can do. That doesn't make us racist. That just makes us sane. The left looks at this and immediately says, you're being racist. It depends on the situation. In America, oftentimes, yes. In Sweden, where you've taken in a large number of immigrants, maybe not. There will be a group that is racist. Let's put those to the side for the moment. There will also be a group that is under economic stress. And when that group is under economic stress, that group will be open to hearing messages like that. Not because the group is necessarily racist, but the group may not necessarily be all that into politics and is receptive when its needs are at risk. The polls, when they asked, showed this. Come on. Right here. When looking at, where is it? They were asking Swedish voters what they cared about. Look at this. Immigration, healthcare, law and order, integration. All four of these relate to immigration. Healthcare, law and order have to do with the taxing of the system itself, meaning the immigrants that are coming into the country. There's a large number that's putting a taxing on the healthcare system because you've had such an influx in such a short period of time. Immigration is number one by itself. Law and order, to some degree, is related to, again, to immigration. Integration. If you're a left-wing party and you're not paying attention to this, you're going to lose. Full stop. And the fact is, when you lose, the right-wing party that gets in office is going to take one step after the next to evict, to keep out those immigrants that you were actually trying to help. If you would have stayed within the carrying capacity of the country, or you would have upped your integration services to a degree where they would have been able to accommodate, and going upward with the number of people that you're allowing in as those services can accommodate it, would have served you better. At the very least, it wouldn't have had you in this situation where you've had a right-wing party essentially eating your lunch. I give fair warning. The left-wing party needs to deal with this argument, especially in situations where people are under economic stress. If you're in Sweden and it is well known that you've had a large influx of people, the right wing will make hay of this, whether this is as real as they say it is or not. The rape thing seems to be real. The crime thing seems to be real. The no-go areas seems to be real. And if those things are real, you will get a populist backlash against those things. Now, they may be against those groups, meaning this kind of, if you ask people on the street, they may be against what they consider to be a racist right-wing group. But that right-wing group is running in number 2. So whether people are acknowledging they're for that group or not, you can say that's a solid number of people who are pushing for that group because they don't necessarily like what their country is becoming. This could have been dealt with in a way where the left wing wouldn't have been completely wiped out. That's all I'm saying. And I mean this for any country. You have to deal with this. I understand from the standpoint of the left, we don't like dealing with this thing of immigration, of saying we're keeping people out because we don't accept immigration as being an issue. Other people in the country do. Which means that if you're associated with just bringing people into the country without having a system to be able to deal with those people, you will be taken out of your seats. And what it looks like from the standpoint of Sweden, these guys are going to come in number 2 and potentially number 1. I want to show this part, and I'm going to let this be the end of it. Listen to this. This is about rapes.
whether or not it's the right person, but...
See, what I'm getting at is, it's been over a month since the rape.
Do you know how many rapes occurred? Well, you might think so, but we have so many similar cases and so few people available, we cannot cope with the workload. We have 3-year-old children that get raped.
Without you being able to prosecute those who do it.
Yes.
The country's Minister of Justice has now weighed in, then saying that it's not right that police don't have time to investigate rapes. He suggests they should review their priorities. The number of sex crimes committed in Sweden has been on.
That's mind-blowing. We don't have time to prosecute rapes. The reason is the strain on the public services. Keep in mind, if you're dropping a lot of those people into certain areas and certain neighborhoods, you may not have enough police and medical personnel in order to scale up in order to deal with the increased number of people you have coming into the country. So he may not necessarily be wrong that they may not necessarily have the public services to deal with, you could say, a new phenomena. Let him keep going.
On the rise. In the first half of this year, the number of rape cases had increased 14% on the previous year. That's reaching 3,500. A member of the Swedish Democrats Party agrees that police just don't have enough resources.
Sentiment which we really don't like. If we want to really, example, make rapes.
It's wrong, though, to...
I want to make one last point, and I want to show you what I mean when I say it is at your peril to ignore people being pissed off or at the very least bothered about this. And you will need to deal with this directly, or you will get taken out of your seat. Listen to what you can say one of the left-wing parties. This guy's in Germany, but the same rule set applies in the way that he's talking about it in Sweden. Listen to the way they're talking about immigration. Now, this is a problem that people are considering to be prescient and in the front of them. These guys are talking about rapes. Listen to the way he's talking about it. He's boiling this down to a system of economics. They're talking about rape, and you're talking about economics. I understand why he's talking about economics, but the public itself is talking about rapes. What are you talking about?
To draw a parallel between numbers of migrants and sex crimes.
Still, there is not really any results who, for example, made rapes, but already they make a connection in between the number of migrants and that there is rape. And this is some kind of racist ressentiment which we really don't like. If we want to really face criminality in any way, there is a saying from the 1970s, and this is valid until today: the best security politics is a good social politics. So if people are not excluded, if everyone has the right to work, if everyone has good health care, if everyone has the possibility to live in dignity in a country, there will be less criminality. And this is our point of view.
He's right. He's right. But that doesn't matter that he's right. That's an intellectual argument. They're talking about rape, and you're talking about social problems. They're talking about rape, and you're talking about jobs. Understand what I mean when I say the left is fucking up on this. That is not the conversation that you need to have. This woman is saying, oh my God, I'm raped. And he's like, look, we need to make sure people have jobs. They're talking about... I don't want to continuously repeat myself. I just mean... What he's saying is true in an abstract, if you can make sure people have jobs and everything else. But Sweden allowed a lot of people into the country at a way where it wasn't able to accommodate that. Meaning, you're incapable of doing those things at a speed at which would prevent those externalities. Let's say it that way. I hope that makes sense. Yes, what you're saying is absolutely right. But the number of people that you were allowing to the country, for the size of Sweden, you weren't able to accommodate those people in a way that wouldn't prevent negative outcomes. So yes, you're right in the abstract, but no, you're wrong from the standpoint of politics, because people are hearing the word rape, they're hearing the word threatens, and they're hearing the word 23 no-go zones. And this idea of this abstract of, yeah, we need to fix the economy is not going to fly. People are concerned about immigration. I understand your argument. Your argument is too intellectual. It's not going to work. So it went too long. Yes, it went 35 minutes. I went 10 minutes over. I hope that made sense. I hope that made sense. Sweden is a Muslim country now. It's over for them. All non-Muslim will be slaughtered. That's not true. That's not true. Wesley Walker. Wow. I got people here this morning. That's amazing. All by design, globalists want to destabilize the world. No, they blew up a country, and you had a lot of people who fled the country that they destroyed. I mean, Bush was a goofball. They plan to go into one country after the next to reshape the Middle East. The vassal states of Europe allowed that to take place, and then even secondarily allowed the United States to essentially let them pay for it. Understand, all of those refugees that are streaming into Europe is taking the burden of the cost, essentially paying for that. They got to pay for those services and all those things. The United States was the country that blew up and destroyed that country. It's Europe that's paying the cost for it. Yes, we've paid trillions of dollars, but Europe is also now paying the cost for being a vassal state of the United States. Whether you want to say that's planned or not, who knows? I don't have that belief that it's planned. I think these people are goofballs and they're out just for the get themselves, meaning to maximize their profits, whether that's in politics, whether that's in business. It may feel better to think that it's planned. I don't think there's anybody at the wheels of the bus. That's all I'm saying. I feel like this is my insomnia family. Love you guys. That's funny. That's funny. Right wingers will try to use this here. Anthony Reyes. No, the problem is you can't look at the world with one lens. The lens that I use in the United States is not the same. If we had an influx of immigrants coming into the country where, let's say, there was an area of Florida that was being completely destabilized because of the number of people who were coming into the country, I may have a different opinion. That opinion will still be from the left. That opinion will probably still be nowhere near what a right winger would come up with. But I would look at the evidence and I would say, okay, what's the population? Is it really having an effect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It depends on where you are. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, if it's having an effect on the population, I don't think it's bad to say it's having an effect on the population. If the population is pushing back against that, and you're literally seeing the politics of destabilization, whether the population is just believing it or whether it's happening, it's almost doesn't matter. If the left is not dealing with that, either from a political standpoint, from an optics standpoint, or from an actuality standpoint, they will suffer at the ballot box. That's all I'm getting at. That's all I am getting at. All right, I'm going to end this here. It's 5:20 in the morning. My wife is about to get up, so I'm going to go check on her. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support through Patreon. Thanks, everyone. And